Good evening. Welcome. It's Real Talk Live with Rodney Grimes. People to people, power to power, positive people. God is good. I am so happy today that I got my big little brother up in here. Troy Smith, we call him, we call him Big Little Brother, but they call him Diesel in the streets. And I'll let him explain that a little later. But God is good. And so, first of all, we just want to give honor to everyone who have been supporting the Real Talk Live. It's so much going on in the process of where we are right now. We're really moving forward to making some major changes. So I want to stress, and I'm going to stress out throughout the program today, definitely you want to go to YouTube. We need to get over 1,000 subscribers. We need this to elevate to a different level so that we'll be able to really change our platform. We got a lot going on. We got a lot of people coming on the team, and we're going to be just making some real big changes. So I'm really excited about all that. Today is man to man, so I couldn't have picked a better brother to bring in. He keeps it real, and he handles his business. So, but as usual, I always have to shout out. I give my shout out to my co-host, Miss Tracy Clark. She just left the area just now. We have to call it the studio because it's set up like the studio right now. So that's what we do. So yes, but much love and respect to Tracy Clark, who she's a beautiful person and just always in the ground with us to make things happen. Also, as you know, we cannot forget the godmother. Come on now, you know the godmother, Miss Rachel Pope. Rachel Pope is a phenomenal lady who always also giving us good advice, coaching us from the side, and also she be bringing in many guests that we have. So we give credit to her for that as well. And I just be thanking her for her support and everything that she does. And so, we just keep it real. It's people to people, power to power, positive people. That's what it's all about. And you cannot forget that we have, date night with Lady Z, right? So we also do that to encourage people to work on relationships. I want people to know also, we always talk about our couple that we run with. Miss Desi is in the house, is Troy's wife. So she's over on the other side, so y'all may hear her say something every now and then. I'm going to try to get her to say something. Say hi, Desi.
Good evening.
Okay, yes. Just to let y'all know, Desi is in the house. And on date night, they are one of our supporters, as we support them as well. One of the things they do all the time is they work on their relationship. And they are, even though I think that we might be a little tiny bit older than they are, but they're like mentors to us because we watch them, how they navigate through their relationship and the things they do. So as y'all see, I stole this picture off of his Facebook. It says, "Thank you, Lord, for your grace." So, what really excites me about a man that's not ashamed to claim God, man, it's really powerful.
Man, you have to have God in your life. That's one thing that you must have. My foundation started early, and a little transparency, my wife kind of teases me about it a little bit, but having God in your life starts early. And now, with the way things are going, people are starting to question their faith on many different levels. But just like building a house, you have bricks and the blocks starting early. In order to have a strong foundation, it has to start from the beginning. Nothing can stand up without that. I have to go back to my earlier ages in just religion alone. I've had a chance to experience many, but two that I can speak of on specifically is Catholicism, and also now that I'm a Baptist. But it was always believed when I was coming up in a time in the 80s, early 70s, 75, early 80s, there was a saying that people got better education if they went to a private school. Most of the private schools in the Washington area were Catholic based. So that's all I knew. So there were certain things that I learned in my early life as far as religion was concerned. I didn't understand really the dynamic of all the differences that people have today. As a child, you don't know that. You just have kind of visions of maybe images or sayings or prayers that were instilled in you during that particular time.
Mm-hmm.
So to make it short and brief, I was an altar boy. Most people would never believe that, but I was an altar server. I had the long robe on with the rope on the side, and I would walk down the aisle with the cross and assist the priest. Now, my wife often asks me sometime, but because there's the stereotype, did those priests ever do anything to you? No, that never happened. Never had any bad experiences, but it taught me so many different things, because on Sundays, it was called Mass. We call it church now, and Baptist or church or service. But back then, Catholics used the term of Mass. Time would begin on time. It was either 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock service, or 12 o'clock. But being an altar boy, that was a job for me. So that not only instilled religion in me, but it instilled a work ethic. And that work ethic instilled, continued through me to bring me to what I am today. It's very important that time, work, you have to work hard. Nothing comes to you easy. So, needless to say, having God in my life has been a pinnacle and staple for my everyday existence. You have to have him in your life in order for everything to work. Your marriage, your relationship, your work life, the problems that you have. Because as a black man in general, we have pressures that are on us that no one will ever understand. Even though you may be married to your wife, she may know you, but no one really understands the struggles that a black man has to deal with on a daily basis. I tell people, imagine black men as being like cinder blocks. In those cinder blocks, you have two openings. And a lot of times, people are actually black men is putting their problems into those blocks. And nobody ever sees it. But we're expected to be able to be supportive for our community. But our community, you really have to look at what our community see us as being black men. And the struggles are very difficult. We're struggling on, no matter how advanced we get, no matter how much education you get, we're still looked upon a certain way based on our community. But religiously and faith is key.
Let me ask you this. How old were you when you was the altar boy?
I started at 6.
6?
I was an altar boy at 6 years old. I was an altar boy at 6 years old until I turned 15 years old.
So do they have an age limit on how old you can be to be altar boy?
No, you don't have there's no age limit. You can continue to do that. Most people, if they continue, they'll branch into something else, maybe a deacon, or they'll go to some other sector of the Catholicism, but I never went that far. I changed my faith when I turned 18. And it's not because I didn't understand the Catholic life. It's just that it was a time in my life that I needed to get my grandfather, as much as he was as strong as he was. I'll tell you why. 18 years old, my grandmother was diagnosed with heart murmurs, and she needed to have a heart transplant. Back then, that was unheard of during that particular time for black families to be able to receive a heart transplant.
Right.
Well, my grandfather decided that at 57 years old, he wanted to be in church. So I went with him, and he found a church home at 57 years old. And I just decided to start going to church with him. That's what made me begin to be Baptist. So I got baptized later on in life.
So, and I like that you said, so it was based on the fact that you being a young male, but your grandfather then decided to go to church.
Yes.
And bringing you with him.
Yes.
Right. That then you actually transitioned from a Catholic based situation to a Baptist.
That's right.
So that's too, a lot of people got to remember, what we do as adults, young people pick it up.
That's right. My grandfather used to make my grandmother mad. They would have been married if they were still living. They would be married in the 60-year bracket right about now. But my grandfather never wavered from showing what it was meant to be religious in the household.
Right. Yeah.
My grandmother cooked every day. My grandfather, when he passed away, he didn't even know how to cook an egg because my grandmother was the one who was the provider and the cooker, but he was the worker.
Right.
He never wavered away from his work ethic, and he never wavered away from his faith and his belief. On a daily, my grandfather would sit and he would not say his grace until his food was in front of his plate, in front of him. But often that grace would be 15 minutes long, when everybody else would have the patience to be like, "We trying to eat," but it was quiet and he had a solemnness about it. He would sit, he would close his eyes, and you would see his mouth moving. And all of us were always concerned about, what do you say, Papa? What are you really saying? You know, what takes you so long? My grandmother being a great-grandmother, your food gonna get cold, George, your food is cold. He didn't care. And when we would have Christmas, Thanksgiving, he always felt that a man should always pray in his own house. So he always had kind of a prayer that he would say for holidays, but on a daily, his relationship with God was a personal one. So when everyone was so intrigued about, what are you saying to God, or what are you actually, he said, "That's my conversation with God. You need to have your own."
Oh, hey, Tracy, how you doing? Tracy Clark.
Hey,
What's up, baby?
how y'all doing?
We doing all right. Go ahead.
I don't know if I missed it or not because I'm driving and I had to switch over. But my question is, what religion did you go to, and was it the transition hard to go from Catholic to the other one?
I transformed into a Baptist.
Okay, so was the transition hard?
No, it was very easy. It wasn't hard at all. It wasn't hard at all because there was a basic understanding that when you have a faith or a vision or belief in what God looks like, it's not a hard transition. I can go into many different churches, different types of religions, and just still have my personal faith. I never got into the competitive edge of trying to say that my faith was better than anyone else's, and I never got into the role of trying to convince anyone else that this faith was better than the other. I just thank goodness that I was able to do that, because life is a learning lesson in all aspects. So in terms of transitioning, I just stopped going to the Catholic Church and started spending more time on the Baptist side. Now, I can still remember till this day several instances in church when I would go as a Catholic. It was more of a routine. It was more of a standardized system that took place. You know, we have Christmas, we have Novena, we have different things in Catholic. But as far as your foundation and belief, I believe that there was a higher being, and there was certain fears that I had. You know, I was always quiet. I was afraid to curse. I was afraid to be disrespectful. I was always felt that eyes were watching. So I carried those traits with me even into the Baptist church. Whereas the Baptist church were a little bit more open. When I was going, church was small, and people had testimonies that they talked about. So when I was a young man, I wasn't as vocal, but as I became older and got into the Baptist church, I was able to find out that a lot of my blessings could be expressed verbally that I couldn't do in the Catholic church.
So are you still a Baptist now?
Yes, I'm still a Baptist now.
Okay. So the hooping and hollering and dancing and everything, that's y'all get down with now. Y'all can do that in the Catholic church.
Yes, but my church has transitioned. My church that I'm with now has transitioned into a non-denominational. So
Okay.
everyone is welcome. It started out, it had humble beginnings. My great-grandmother was a member of the church that I attend now. My grandmother was a member, and now I'm a member as well. But I will say this, a little bit of transparency. I've found that nothing can work without your faith. And I managed to find me a wonderful wife that will follow a crazy man anywhere. And there was a time period that I took a hiatus and didn't go to church. And when I did not go to church, I was married once before. And my first wife and I, when we met, they didn't believe in divorce in the Catholic Church. My first wife was a Catholic. So she couldn't get married a second time in the Catholic Church. They didn't believe in that. So in order for her to become married, she had to pretty much come to the side that I was at. But the day that we said I do, and all the white dresses are gone and tuxedos are gone and all the party favors and everything are all done and over with, when I would talk about telling her about trying to go to church, she didn't want to go. And needless to say, we spent 10 years together in a relationship, but didn't have one. And we were just not equally yoked because I could not get her to follow. The doctrine of a man is, the doctrine of God is for men and women to be equally yoked. The man is a head, and if he can show leadership qualities in reference to his religion and faith, and he has a strong woman behind him that can follow him and will trust in that faith, you'll be surprised at magic that you can get out of something like that.
Amen. I got to say amen to that. That's real. That's real talk.
So what's your opinion on what God is doing with the churches right now today?
My opinion of what God is doing with the churches now is that it's your individual preference. I know that a lot of people are struggling with what churches have become. But nothing has changed in terms of what church is. It's up to you. If you can, your own church starts within. You don't have to go anywhere. I tell people all the time, most people don't want to come to church because they feel like, well, they turn into a business and every time I turn around, they got their hand out. You can go, you just don't give anything. I mean,
right.
But most people feel guilty. That's their own personal guilt that they have, because I can go to a church, if I don't want to give, I don't want to give. Or if I feel as though my pastor is making millions of dollars, there's a sacrifice that goes along with that. I mean, anything that we do, we expect it. When we go to work, we expect it to get paid as well. But my church has evolved into something so unique that my wife has really shown me, for example, of what she gravitates towards. In our church, we have a lot of members, but my pastor knows us by first name. But we're on ministries that matter. And when I say that we're on ministries that matter, my wife works on missions ministry. I do transportation and security as well as missions. So we're actually on the outreach portion of the church that most people never see. The parts that people really get kind of discouraged by when it comes to church or what they're doing today is that everybody's looking for a quick fix and everybody's looking for a quick answer for what's suiting them right now. But if church is not, a building is not going to do you any good. I don't care if you go to T.D. Jakes' church, if you go to a small church, if you go to any big famous church with a lot of members, you're just someone there that's belonging. But what church really is when you go and make an impact.
So do you think because you developed a relationship with God as a youngster, that's the reason why you are so successful and prosperous with God now?
Absolutely. And I'm so afraid. I knew the question was going to eventually come up at one period of time, and I struggle with this a lot because I'm 49 years old and a lifetime away, and I'm finding that our children now and our youth now just do not have that foundation, and it's not their fault. It begins with parenting, and what I mean by that is that we can give them computers and we can give them Google and we can give them everything now. Yes, they are meant to know everything, because when you give them Google, they can type in, what is this, what is that, and they have all these different opinions. And it's not forcing them to sit still and sit down, and they're coming to church any kind of way. When I went to church, it was unheard of for girls to go to church without a little dress on, or guys, little boys to go without hard-bottom shoes. The hard-bottom shoe issue is a big thing, because that also instills on what to wear for when. Because we're all judged by what we see. So I think that getting back to how I feel as far as where my faith has become and my success, it definitely starts early. And we have to, as a community, as a race of people, we have to figure out a way. I don't know how it's going to happen. It may not even happen in my lifetime. but we have to figure out a way to get back into those respective teachings, because our youth are really becoming lost because they're not even developing certain things that are needed every day, such as self-respect.
Okay, this is my last question. I'm not gonna bother y'all no more.
No,
Oh, that's fine.
Hey, no, I'm sitting here. I'm just loving this. I'm sitting here. Go ahead, Tracy. Go ahead, sweetie.
So, because of who you are and what you stand for, have you ever thought of you and your wife is outreach and your hands-on? Have you ever thought about putting an organization or a group together to reach these young people that are lost? Because their parents, evidently their parents are lost as well, and they don't have that relationship. They don't know how to have that relationship with God. Have you ever thought about, because of what he's doing with the churches now, and churches, they don't reach out to young people. Have you ever thought about reaching out, having an outreach to reach out to young people to help them to develop a relationship with God, just like you?
Yes, I have. You know, it was funny. On my way over here today, my wife just asked me about that too. In my neighborhood, we live in a cul-de-sac, and when this COVID hit, kids that I didn't see that were in the house, you know, they were sheltered so much because the parents feel like the world is so crazy. Well, in my neighborhood, I have a total of 9 kids that I didn't know existed, between children and grandchildren that come out. And during the day, even when I'm working, they're coming and knocking on my door. And they come as a whole group, whereas their parents are like telling them, don't bother Mr. Troy, leave Mr. Troy alone. But they've learned a whole lot of things. They call me Mr. Troy, they call my wife Miss Desi, and they call people in the neighborhood by the prefix Mr. or Mrs. And they ask these key questions. You know, Mr. Troy, you not scared? I went up on top of my house last week working on a ladder, and they were like, we were so scared. But I was able to explain to them that that's nothing to fear. So just reaching your community is a start. And basically, I had thought about it on a broader scale, basically actually thinking about getting Rodney involved in this as well, because I wanted to get a little building, a little hall. You know how the girls used to have barbers on for ballet and showing ladies how to be ladies? Well, I wanted to actually get a spot like that to show men how to be men, teach them trades, teach them how to take care of themselves, self-grooming,
Yeah.
all of these things that they're going to need to know. They may never have, their talents may never be tapped into if someone doesn't expose them. But this is where I run into an issue. I run into an issue when I try to show a child something that may be considered dangerous in someone else's eyes. They feel like it's a child labor law problem. You know, why you got that child doing that? You know, so you run into those challenges, or someone may feel as though, like for example, I'm a bona fide workaholic. So I started out working early. My grandfather had me doing things that were unheard of. I was starting lawnmowers at like 5, you know, and he was telling me what not to touch. Don't touch this, don't touch that, never put your hand underneath, but push the lawnmower. Now when I was growing up, I felt like, my granddad doing this to me, and I would seek sympathy through the ladies in my household, my mom and my grandmother and my cousins. I would go to them and act like I was in so much pain. And the more that I would complain to them, my grandfather would hear that, and he would make me work even harder. So what I say is, if I were to put a child behind a lawnmower to just say, hey, this will help you later. You might not understand why you're doing this now. You might not understand why you're taking out the trash. You might not understand why you're cleaning the window. You might not understand why I have you changing this tire. But when you get your own, it will be like second nature.
But you'll be teaching them a work ethic, and I think because of the parents, they don't know how because nobody taught them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray that God opens the door, because I don't think anything happens by accident. I believe God started you out as a young man because this is your destiny to help other young men become the men that God created you to be. Because you have
Well,
So I'm going to pray that God opens the door for you to do exactly what your desires are, and you are going to succeed at.
I appreciate that. I can definitely use the prayers in that. And I oftentimes, and I tell people all the time, God talks to you differently. And he puts you in places where you need to be. And the voices that I hear every day and the people that I come in contact with will allow me to be able to understand. And I definitely push forward and would love to have people behind me. And I know that Rodney, by putting this together, this is a platform for all of us young men to possibly be able to reach out to our young men today. But it takes both sides. It takes males and females, because when young males are out here now not working, in the passenger seat of a car, not going anywhere, and our ladies are out here doing it all, our ladies have to be able to begin to set standards and say, hey, if I got a car, you got to have one. I mean, that's just because anybody that I dated when I was coming up, they expected me to have these things moving forward. And even with the success of my marriage, my wife is not going to have me sitting around. I mean, she expects me to still open the door for her. You know, if I mess up, I feel like I'm one of the little boys getting in trouble. You know, you forgot to open the door for me. But those are things that we have to continue to instill, even for our ladies. Our ladies are queens in our houses, and they're very strong and they're very influential on our men. But what they have to do is they have to take a step back and realize that men and women are different. And if you are raising a young man, you have to make sure that you tap into his masculine side, because if not, he's going to mimic what he sees.
Yes.
He's going to become a talker. He's going to become more into color. He's going to become more onto the softer side, where when you're molding him to try to be a good man in society, that's not what society is waiting on. They're not looking for that. They're going to look for someone that's going to be able to lead us, and that's what we're finding. In the last 10 or 15 years, we've had powerful black males, but they're senior age now. Now, the ones that can come forward, they're not doing much speaking, but we have them on Capitol Hill. We have them behind the scenes in politics. But we have to teach our kids to turn on the news, look at politics, watch TV. There are actual people that look like you that are making big moves behind the scenes.
That's right. So I know that God is something that you have to want. And what you're doing to save these young people is something that you have to want. And a lot of people don't. In these last days, a lot of people are not going to be here in the years to come, even just through this COVID. So don't be discouraged when these women don't want their children to be involved, because he's going to send the ones that's hungry for him, that's hungry for what you have to him.
That is
and
true.
It's going to be wonderful. You just stick with it, and I'm going to be praying.
I appreciate it. I will do that. Thank you.
God bless you, and thank you so much
Thank you.
for all your wisdom and allowing God to use you.
Thank you.
Love you, Tracy. Love you, baby.
Love you too. Bye.
So, hey, first of all, God is good. I was just sitting back and I'm listening to the questions she was asking, and Tracy she's the one that always go right to the core of what is going on around us. And so I was sitting and my mind was just going. But for everybody that just joined in, this is Real Talk Live with Rodney Grimes, people to people, power to power, positive thinking people. My guest today is Mr. Troy Smith, Senior, actually, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that was my co-host Tracy, who called. Tracy had just left the studio location, and so I tried to get her to stay, but I love her because she jumped right in there and handled her business. And so, and like always, Tracy, she like I want to say like a cowgirl with the gun on the side. When she pulled, she
go right to
she go right. She go right to the heart, and she goes and definitely. So what I want to do also, I want to go to the screen. We had some comments there. Gerald said, "Altar boy days, never had so much fun cutting up on the altar."
Hey Gerald, if you're still there, how many times did you eat the bread and drink the wine as a kid?
What, before y'all did it? I mean, before you...
Yeah, before you go out there. Yeah, if during the service or during mass, we would go back in the back, and these are little secrets. You're hungry. You go back there, and everybody thought the little round bread was blessed. Well, it wasn't. It was not blessed until the priest gets a hold of it. But it comes in these big plastic bags, and we just go in there and grab handfuls like potato chips, man, and sit back there and drink the wine also.
Success being, what is it? Success means being different and doing something
different, authentic. That's a good statement.
That's
I like that statement.
Yeah, that's Prophet Katrina. She's another one of our spiritual individuals that support the Real Talk Live. She also, before I carry on, Katrina also she do live, and she's always putting the positive energy of God out. Drinking out of the bottle.
Yes.
Hey, girl said drinking out of the bottle.
Drinking right out the cruet. If you remember what that is, wine cruets as they call them. We drank right out the cruet. If they ever marked the bottle, they knew we were drinking it.
Oh, so do you think that they ever
knew?
do? Oh, okay.
They never marked the bottle.
And we want to also say just hello to everybody who has tuned in. Definitely to Khadija, I see you're there. Welcome. Miss Lynn said the Untouchables in Alexandria, Virginia has this type of program, 37 years. They just actually celebrated an anniversary not long ago. And that's something that, for real, I got to do a follow-up, because when you were speaking about doing a program or doing something that where we had the young guys come in and we would, teach them how to be men, that's really, really important. Sir, do it now in Jesus' name. New Glory 2020, move out on the vision, I hear. She says, sir, you will begin to dream concerning this vision. That's Prophet Katrina.
I appreciate that.
Okay, and what's who? Shauna. She said, love this topic. You're dropping some jewelry and jewels and imperative information on our young men. Okay, I'm gonna hold on. Yeah, right. Okay, so let me say this. When I go out and I mentor to a lot of young people, and I was just, that's why I was sitting back and I was just listening to you, some of the things that you was throwing out there, like, the wife supporting you, but the man being the leader in the house, and it really comes to a point where you got to know your position, and not all the time are we in that surrounding where we have our position.
Right.
And so young men will have a tendency to go all which way, because girls is a little easier, because it's just like, hug and love and baby them. But with boys, you gotta try to teach them to stand strong, to be respectful, to be gentlemen, to know that showing your soft side doesn't mean that you're weak.
That's right.
But get them to a point where they can stand up and say, yo, a man can come and say, I'm sorry. A man can come back and say, I don't have to fight you to prove that I can beat you. Or if a man did something wrong, a real man can come back and apologize. And it takes real men to show little boys how to become real men.
I'm gonna let you in on a little secret, and also give an example. This is probably gonna flare up a little feathers, but it's a good thing, and it's definitely positive in nature. My mom raised 2 boys. There's a 10-year gap between us.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up around a lot of girls. My whole family, I was the bad little boy in the clothing store all day, Atlanta Mall, Iverson Mall, you name it. I would be taken out of the house at the first part of the day, 9 o'clock in the morning, and be with females until 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and was expected to behave. But how are you gonna behave in a woman's clothing store? So I learned to like the ladies on the mannequins, and I was up their skirts and looking up their dresses, knocking over the mannequins, because that was the only thing that entertained me. I mean, it was one of those things, well, what else am I supposed to do? I mean, y'all are in the dressing room trying on clothes. Women can go in a dressing room 3 or 4 deep, and they can put on clothes. Hey girl, what this look like? Us, we're left to stand outside, and we're meant to be private. We're not meant to see what's there. So our imagination is running wild. So as a young man, you grow up to be the same grown man with the same traits. And then you're asked, what are you looking at? Why are you looking at other women? I mean, we're on real talk, so it has to come out. But these are things that you're challenged with, because if you're with a woman, she's expecting you to talk. But when your mother raised you, you go sit down somewhere, go play. This is not a conversation for you. So that same little boy grows up to be the grown man with those same traits instilled.
Come on,
so
man.
when you meet or you're in a relationship, a lot of women will sometimes say, well, I can't find a good man. It's not that you can't find a good man. The good man is here. But what you're trying to find is either a son or somebody that you can try to mold.
Right.
But that's not him.
Right.
You have to tap into what your man is really about. If your man is not a talker, if you got a man that's not a talker, once you talk to him, you need to find out what really drives him. What really drives him, because there's certain things that capture our attention. So even with my wife, we get frisky all the time. And every now and then, you know, she's like, what you doing? But now I can smack her on the butt in public, she don't even flinch, because she just pretty much knows that's just how I am.
Right.
But those things drive us. Those are things that we see. Those are things that drive us. So if we go somewhere and she goes shopping and she puts clothes on or something like that, I'm looking at something that I've seen even when growing up. That's what entertained me.
When man, and you, boy, did you not hit something really on the head. And when you're talking about saying they bringing you into the clothing store and stuff like that, because I have one brother that I really know about, but really one brother. I mean, and when I say one brother, by my mother, I have individuals who have been brothers to me, and my brother's 10 years older than me, and in our family we had a lot of females as well. And one of the things that, and I can tell because the way you carry yourself, that we kind of was in that same mold. Not only are we gentlemen, we know how to treat a woman, because of our charisma that we picked up from them, that we have this way of carrying ourselves with that respect. That sometimes, if you grew up with a house full of men, that you don't get, you know, because that woman can get that. But boy, don't you raise your voice at me, or you don't. Why are you looking up under that dress? You know, that type of stuff that make you, when the father say, "What you see," you know, and it can be a different thing.
And the same thing applies to our schooling, our education. I mean, our communities are dying. The male teacher is just not present. The male teacher is just not is not present for what our kids are expecting, what manhood is supposed to be. So a child grows up to see a female teacher through his whole childhood schooling term. He thinks that he's supposed to only take direction from a female.
Right. And we find ourselves being in a submissive state sometimes based on just that and not know why.
That's right. That's right. And the saddest part is that what's most damaging is that men, we listen, we hear, and we process the information. And the worst thing that a female can do that has a boy, a young man in her relationship, or a young man that she's raising, the worst thing to do is to poison his mind about what a man is or what a man is not doing.
Come on.
Because he grows up thinking that if my mother is disappointed, I don't want to be that.
And
so if I don't want to be that, then there's no way to really navigate. There's really no way to navigate through that.
I would say this too. First of all, for everybody that joined in, this is Real Talk Live with Rodney Grimes. People to people, power to power, positive thing of people. God is so good, man. This brother right here. Let me tell you something. These are conversations we have all the time. He's a gentleman that that's why I put man to man on the topic. We have man conversations, and a lot of times it's no disrespect to our women or our wives, our partners, but what we do is we talk about from a man's perspective.
A man's perspective, that's key.
And so one of the things I want to tell to mothers, whenever I went to mentor into a single family home where it was a mother, I will always tell her, remember one thing, you cannot teach him how to stand up and pee.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. If you understand the logic to that, you understand. So reason why I just said that is what you just said was real powerful when you was talking about women have a tendency, they'll start talking about man this and man that, and not all the time are they talking about how powerful a man is, but they're talking about the negativity of this and that, and then you can confuse a little boy to a point where he'd be like, well, I don't really want to be a man.
Oh yeah. Well, I tell you what, this is a unique thing. My mom's been married to my stepdad now almost 40 years, and the image of that stepdad, he was very influential in a lot of things that I was doing growing up. He was the type of man who would go and ask the teachers, what is he doing? Is he cutting up? Is he doing what he's supposed to do in school? And as a young man, because at that particular time, he was new to my life. I was 10 years old, but my mother never really interfered with that. Sometimes she would. So what I would do is I would go home and play both ends against the middle. I would go home and see who's gonna win this fight. I would go home and say that my stepdad went and checked on me at school, and he told me to do something, and he did this to me, and my mom would automatically react because I'm her son. But needless to say, because I had that gap in between with just her growing up, and when I got to be 10 years old, and he came into the picture, I began to see how it all clicked. And I realized, there's two sides to this.
Right.
There's a male's voice, and there's a female's voice. And some of our young men now are growing up and don't know what side of the fence they're supposed to be on. And it's sad, because you really can't reach out to them. You want to reach out to them and say, hey, you ever tried doing this?
Right.
You ever wonder why you're not advancing? Is because there's another place for you. There's a place for you that the male side just hasn't tapped in yet.
Right.
So don't be influenced by, if you go out the door and you feel like, Mom, I need to go out here and see what's what, and she say it's dangerous, you're like, look, Mom, I got to do this for myself.
Right.
Because if you're going to listen to the nurturing side of it, there's a side that you have to be armed with the world. When you walk out the door every day, there's so many different challenges against you as a black male, period. And if you don't tap into that, you're going to be lost.
Let me tell you something that I saw on it, man. My brain is just going. So I was watching a program the other day, and it was Leave It to Beaver. And so the Beaver was him and his friends that came to get him because this bully wanted to fight him. And so they was waiting for him, and he was trying to go to his father and ask his father all the questions because he was scared because he didn't want to go and fight the bully. And he was asking his father something. Now, I'm listening to what you're saying because you triggered my brain. And the fact that he didn't go to his mother, he went to his dad. And he was asking his father all these questions. And so, long story short, he ended up going out, and his friends were, his mom said, your friend's outside, and he went on outside, and when he got to say, Beaver, come on, you gotta go fight, blah, blah, blah. So his brother Wiley said, Mom, he snitched and said, you don't know where the Beaver's going, but Beaver's going to fight. So she called upstairs and called the dad downstairs, and he came downstairs, had the stuff on it, and she was like, you gotta call the police and you gotta do this and that. And he was like, what's going on? She said, the Beaver's getting ready to go have a fight. And he said, okay, and what? Like that. And then the mother said, oh no, but what if he get beat up? He said, well, I mean, it's a process. Basically what he's saying is, he got to learn. So he looked at Wiley and told his son, the older son, he said, go over there and just and do what's right. And Wiley said, well, if he winning, I'm gonna let him win, and if he losing, I'll stop the fight.
Yeah.
But the point of the whole matter was, at that point, the father knew he had to let the Beaver go out and deal with that challenge.
That's right.
And he had to deal with it without getting involved. And tell the mother, step back. And she was like, oh, I'm hoping, are you going to be upset? Because she was like, if he comes in here beat up or whatever. And when he came back, the boy never showed up.
That's right.
And so he came, he was all pumped.
That's
And he
right.
was like, Dad, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
He went on upstairs, and then the father looked at the mother to say,
You need that.
yeah.
And look, I just happened to see a comment, Rodney, in reference to concerning Black Lives Matter. what will you say to these young and older fellows who wear their pants down like, ooh, that's a good topic. I always talk about that all the time. I mean, most people see me, my pants are up.
Yeah. And mine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm constantly doing this bulletin. Yeah.
Society, what I actually say is that we've developed a slogan like you have here, and the slogan is very powerful slogan. It says, Black Lives Matter. To me, all lives matter. I've had the opportunity to travel a lot of different places, so I've dealt with a lot of different cultures and people from around the world, and I've had a chance to have a lot of different experiences. And what happens is, in our struggle as the black race, in our struggle to try to belong and to develop our own identity, we try so hard and we idolize the wrong things. And what I'm finding is that we do things as a people, and even young men, we'll just talk about that because I'm going to talk about the pants. I knew that I wouldn't wear something if the little girl didn't like it. That's where it starts. If I wear something, even when I went to school, if you didn't have on name brand tennis shoes, you got talked about. Or the girl felt like you weren't up to par if you didn't have the name brand tennis shoes. Well, the same thing applies to these pants. Obviously, when I see these young men walking around and their pants are hanging down and they're with the lady and the lady don't say anything and the girl doesn't say anything, that's sending the message that it's okay. And then if we're riding in a car or you see people walking and you see a young man come into the grocery store and there are people there, there are children there, if that's considered indecent, if I walk out my house to go get the newspaper or I go put the trash out in my underwear, I'm going to jail. Because they're going to say that's indecent exposure because there's an expectation of me. My neighbors see me with pants on all the time. But if I come out and my underwear is showing, that's going to shock the world. They're going to be like, this dude's crazy. He need to go talk to somebody. So the same thing. The guys that are walking around with their pants down, they're idolizing the wrong thing. As much as we tell them what it means, it doesn't matter. It's not going to sink in if society doesn't step up and say, this is what we have to do. You cannot wear your pants like that. I don't care how much it is a style. You cannot wear your pants like that.
But let me interject in there. Yeah, for one, first of all, the mothers has to start to still teach the young ladies not to belittle themselves in the presence of a guy who's walking around showing his underwear.
Exactly.
Because that's not showing her
That's
any
right.
respect.
That's right.
The other thing is that, as you said, if we were to do that and we was to go out there, and I mean, this boys, the pants be all the way down here. You can see some of them that, I mean, you know the color of the drawers, you can tell that the drawers are clean or dirty because it shows everything. Wait a minute, Lynn Nelson said, fatherless daughters versus fatherless sons. Some techniques that you use in raising them.
Oh, okay. I have two children. I have a daughter and I have a son. And my son was raised in a home with me up until he was 10 years old. My daughter was never raised in the same household. But I made sure that my presence in my children's life was a unique one. It's kind of a touchy subject for me, not because I feel ashamed about it, it's because it's taught me a whole lot. I was in the system, as they say, for a long period of time. And the system was a big challenge for me because I couldn't understand how they would tell me that I would have to pay a certain amount of money per month for child support. And then I would go out and work, and every time I get a raise, they take more. And then they tell me that I had visitation. But in order to meet this financial demand, that meant either making a balance between spending the time or making the money. And I struggled with that for many, many years, and I could not understand. And it got to a point where I made decisions on whether I was going to either pay child support or pay mortgage. And that was one of the struggles that I dealt with for at least 8 years, But what I did not waver from was spending the time with my kids.
Right.
Because now that my children are grown, things that I would say to them growing up, especially my daughter, I used to tell my daughter I couldn't understand why, even though my daughter didn't live with me, she always wanted to take me shopping with her. And we would get into these little back and forth arguments and everything. But that was her way of reaching out to me, finding out what dad wanted to see me in, or what is really appealing,
Yeah.
to a man. Yeah, her mom could take her shopping all day long, but when we would go, I would always tell her, baby, you can't wear that. If you're gonna have the top out, because my daughter was endowed on both ends, so I would always tell my daughter growing up, if you're gonna have the top out, you gotta cover the bottom. If you're gonna have your legs out, you gotta cover the top. They can't be both out at the same time. Those lessons that I taught her years ago, they're still with her today. And she's at a point now where she's in that dating age, and she's trying to find that balance of the man that's going to appreciate her and put her in the right direction to what do I really like.
Right.
So what I found with my daughter, she was cutting her hair off, she was growing it, she was, and she was sending me pictures, and she's still looking for that, what works.
Right. Yeah.
That work for, and my son, raising him as a young man, I thought he was a lost cause. I thought he was going to be lost. But my son has done a total 360, and he gets it. And he's 21 years old, and 2 years ago, I thought he wasn't never going to work. I didn't think he was ever going to drive. But my son has 2 cars now and working 3 jobs, and ain't listening to nobody.
But hold on.
So
I got to interject on that because, one, he had you as an example.
Right.
So a lot of men got to understand that your son, even if you're not like hands on, he's going to mimic his dad. Mm-hmm. So that, because I know your son and know your work ethics and who you are, so he's the junior. Mm-hmm. So he's following the example of his dad. I had wrote down some notes. It was about child support. So since you talked about that, and I wanted to ask you this question. Where do you stand with child support as far as a woman taking it into the system to have the father going to pay the courts? How do you feel about that? What do you think about that?
Well, how I feel about it is each situation is different, and I'm not saying that the system is not there for a reason. Definitely, the system is there for a reason. We have some people that definitely need that.
But before we go there, now you remember that the system in this country is not equally yoked.
Oh yes, definitely not.
Okay,
equally
so
yoked.
go
right.
ahead.
It's definitely not equal,
Right.
and it's not catered for the everyday strong man. It's a killer for the everyday working man, because most times it's no secret. Women are taught just like men are. From birth up, they mimic what they see. So if they're in a system where their mother took their father to support, they felt like that's the only way to control.
Katrina,
Y'all
y'all got some powerful
Yeah, that's a good one. That's
Yes.
a good
Oh,
one. That's
my
a good
goodness.
one. How do you feel about these young men who have?
7.
I have no.
Katrina, I love you. Katrina say, how do you feel about these young men who have 7 baby mamas?
Okay,
or
then there's
more?
a flip side to that. How do I feel about the baby mamas who decided the 6th baby mama who knew about the other 5 that decided to lay down and have a baby with him to create this number? That's my problem.
Right.
What woman doesn't say to herself, how many kids do you have? How many baby mamas do you have?
Or how many daddies?
But I'm gonna still lay down with you. I mean, at some period of time, when do you have the self-respect to say, no, I'm not gonna tolerate this? But when it comes to men that have 7 different baby mamas or more, I have no sympathy for them. No, I think they should work 24 hours a day, and they have to pay.
Look, when it comes down to it, every man, that when you put yourself in a position you lay down with a woman, I feel that you are responsible for your actions no matter what. And if a baby comes out of that, you're responsible for that child 100%.
Exactly.
I don't, so that's one of the things that you really, most men should be teaching their sons, to let them know. Me personally, I don't have kids all over the place, and I was taught, to be responsible. You're going to take care of your kids. She said,
but I wanted to bounce back on that real quick, because let me say, we talked on this a little bit earlier in reference to the 7 baby mamas and different things like that. Any man that beds down with that many women and don't have any structure at all, he has no self-respect to even want to have that many kids.
Right.
I mean, I
Especially
struggle
by-
with 2.
Yeah, but especially to have them by
Yes.
7 different women.
But it's the manipulation. You know, it's the manipulation part. It's the part where either it was something that he did verbally, he either got into the woman's head or whatever. But it was clearly he didn't have anything to offer but that.
But see, also you got to look at it from the women's perspective too. What you got to realize is that a lot of women are not taught to respect themselves and understand that you cannot allow yourself to take a seed from just somebody you like the way they look. You need to know their history, their background. You want to know about who is planting the seed in your body. And a lot of females are not being taught that. But for men, at one time, it was like when I was coming up I was born in the 60s. And let me tell you something. I used to listen, and it was almost like the more women you had, the more manly you were.
Right, exactly.
And so a lot of people would believe in that, you know.
But we're driven on vision, Rodney. It's just like anything else. We're driven on vision. It's another question on there that's going to lead me right into what I'm saying. The image of manhood is manly. It's no secret. I mean, different races have looked upon us as being the strong buck or what have you. So a female's image of a man is the same as we see females sometimes, but it's just not as expressed the same. So I was looking at her comment where it says, what is your advice to these young men addicted to porn? So my advice to young men to realize is that they're struggling with something in their mind that's not a reality. They want to mimic something that they see that's actually being paid and being orchestrated. That's not what relationships are. That's not what a relationship is. Now, if he's just looking for sex, he's going to be entertained by that. But we're moving into a whole different arena of porn, where as boys grew up looking at Playboy books, that was off limits for women. Women looked at men that did that as being, you're looking at that nasty woman. Whereas now, there's a market just for women's pleasure that's just the same. They're becoming addicted to toys and things like that at an older age. So men have to combat with that as well, because they're looking for a man that's going to be able to be satisfactory with what's being told of what a man should be able to do for you. So if a man is not able to satisfy you, then what do? They go and they find pleasure elsewhere. So it's the same thing.
So let me chime in on this. Okay. Any situation when people are developing, sometimes you get exposed to things you don't understand, whether it's porn, drugs, lying, trying to be dominant in relationships. These areas right here, these are things that happen as you grow up. For a lot of people in relationship, they forget exactly what it takes to build a relationship where porn and toys and going out on your partner, or they don't understand what it takes. That communication within, when you talk about these things, you are able to then be able to identify what causes these things to come about. When you're looking at TV and all you seeing is girls showing their breasts and their butts, and then you see the guys that's running around that's also exposing themselves as well, you start to have this vision in your mind that sex and these type of things is the way that you communicate.
Exactly, and that's how they communicate.
And that's what causes
and what happens,
problems.
the sad part about it is that in our society, or any society for that matter, has gotten to a point where now everything that we want to see is at our fingertips. Where we used to have to struggle for them, now they're right there. So for example, you take sports, basketball players, things like that. Everything like that is going to have a groupie scenario. But in that groupie scenario, what are they exposing? They're putting on the forefront that I am physically this, and I can do what you see. So everybody wants to mimic that because they want to find something, but they're using what they have, whether it be physical, money, whatever, to get what they want. That's why we have so many women that are being mistreated in the sports world because they have no voice after they've been, they put themselves out there.
Yeah.
They've been financially paid or what have you, and then totally taken advantage of. Their mind is all totally messed up, where it becomes an abuse scenario then.
Okay, Lynn Nelson, she said, women now are making more financially, and some, not all men, do not work, but may take care of the home front, such as cleaning and cooking, taking care of the children. I have several friend women that are living this lifestyle.
That's the reality of our time.
Yeah.
And that's the reality of our time, and it's not going to change because we have, as a race of people, we have come to a situation where the woman has become the driving force. The woman has to go out there and take care of the family because there was a society of time. If you look at a timeline, when I was coming up in the 70s and 80s, a man was told, you gotta go out and get a good job. Women weren't able to get the jobs as readily, as fast as a man was. Men were working in post offices. The thing of it was either, you work at the post office, you work at a grocery store, you drive a truck, be a trash man, you can make all the money in the world and take care of your family. Where as time went on, women were telling their sons, no, I don't want you doing that. I want my son to be the husband that I want to have.
Right.
So he sat back and he never followed his dream to find out what it's really like to go out and make the money. So now what we see is women driving buses, driving trucks, doing everything that men used to do in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
They've come back because now there's a group of guys out here that's totally lost. They don't even know what it's like to go out and make money because the woman will always be the provider. They were always going out buying for them and doing things for them.
A lot of women enter a relationship as if it's going to be different with me because I'm not the others. When the truth we have to realize we can't raise or change a growing man who isn't ready.
Right. Now, I can comment on that personally because I know where that statement comes from. And my thing is standards. My wife pretty much told me when I met her that it's going to be this or nothing. This is what I expect. And either I was going to boo-boo or get off the pot. That's pretty much how it went. I realized at that particular time that she had self-respect, that she was not going to tolerate a man that wasn't going to be or have her around as a puppet. So having those standards there made me realize that, hey, if I want to be able to grow and I want to be a strong man, I'm going to have to make sure that this is the kind of woman that I want to have. I can walk out in the street, and you can too. Walk out the street, get any woman you want. Just go out there and point one. You can do that till this day. But who wants to, we don't want to raise women that ain't raised either. We don't want nobody that's talking. We don't want nobody cussing at us. We don't want that. I mean, there's certain standards. You can be pretty as ever, but sometimes you open that mouth, and that takes it right away.
Yeah.
So yes, when a man meets you as a female, when a man meets you, you have to have certain standards, and you have to put those standards way higher than he is, way higher. If you don't have a car, I'm sorry, babe, I can't talk to you. What are your dreams? What did you want to be when you grew up? That's the question you need to ask him. If he's like, I don't know, he has no vision past where he's at today. So he has to be able to say, if you want a family man, he's going to have that in this conversation.
Well, one of the things, let me take a moment to say, this is Real Talk Live with Rodney Grimes. People to people, power to power, power to thinking people. Remember, people to people, me, you, and them. Power to power to power. They possess the power we possess, and the power we bring to government is positive thinking people. My guest today is Mr. Troy Smith Sr. This brother here, again, these are conversations we have, and this, I'm not surprised when you said where your son is today. And even what you identified that coming up you were different, but then you got your life together and now your son did the same thing. I on October 20th, on October 19th, I'm gonna have both of my sons on the show, and that's gonna be a very, very proud day for me. And the reason why I'm saying that is because both of my sons are very, very strong men, and I love what they stand for. But and I won't tell the story, but other than the fact that I know that I had a lot to do with it, right? So it was something that says Tracy had something on there. Let's go back. Okay, that's why we need men like you to teach men and women what it means to love and respect yourself. And can you raise it up? Wait a minute. Yeah.
Messages.
Yeah. Okay, hold on.
There it is, right there. Yeah.
It says, okay, that's why we need men like you to teach men and women what it means to love and respect yourself and a woman in a relationship in God's eyes. And we have to most definitely do that. That's one of the transitions that I found myself in my relationship right now, where I put God first. I don't put my wife first. I put God first. And then through God's eyes, I now know my position.
Right, exactly.
And that what dictates my actions.
Exactly.
I don't care what it is. So it's real talk. I don't care if it's porn. I don't care if it's drug. I don't care if it's dominating. I don't care if it's cheating. I don't care what it is. See, we all have our trials and tribulations that we have to deal with.
Right.
But when you put God first, in any situation, you will start to navigate. That's what we have to do first in all the relationships. Inside our homes, we have to make sure that we have God in the midst and stand strong, that when the young males and females, with my granddaughters, when they see me, I respect their grandmother. Me and the grandmother be doing something, and I'll go in the kitchen and I'll say, yo, give me some water. And she'll turn around and say, excuse me? I said, give me some water. And she said, say please. And my grandchildren will turn back and look, because they're waiting to see what's going to happen. But me, then I know I have to say, sorry, please. And through those actions, our kids start to see. So that's what we have to do. We see our relationships with everything through God's eyes, and then we start to learn how to walk it.
Oh, yeah.
And live it. Tammy Jones, thank you both. This was a very good topic. Katrina said, wow. Katrina speak. Hey, let me say this. For real, all of us, we're in a time right now that it's important to know our positions. You got to know your positions as a wife, as a woman, as a female. And men, we have to know our positions too. And we're not just responsible for our household.
Oh, that's right.
You're responsible for outside of it as well.
This COVID situation has exposed everyone. This COVID situation has exposed everyone to determine where you fit in this lifetime and in your relationships.
Yes.
Whether it be with your children,
Yes.
your mate that you're with, it has exposed all of that.
Yes.
Because it has forced everyone to open their eyes and realize, what's really important to me. Whereas before, people were actually going through life blind. They had people that were actually waking up every day, Rodney, that ladies were either going away or trying to get away from an abusive relationship that they were living in daily. They would go to work as an outlet to keep from getting hit upside the head. Now, all of a sudden, this man is forced to be at home. Now he's not working too. And now you got to stay in the house with that abuse?
Oh, my God.
Now you have children that mothers took them to school to get them away from the abusive uncle, abusive grandfather, abusive grandmother. Now this child is forced to be stuck in the house with this kind of abuse. So we're in a world now that we really have to ask ourselves the question, as a black race, what are we going to do to survive? Because we're on the extinct end. The black man is on the extinct end, whether they want to believe it or not. We're dying in mass numbers. We're not dying from just gunshots. We're not dying just because of drugs. We're dying as an image in society.
If
We're walking out lost.
we have to realize that we are truly an endangered species.
Endangered species.
Because right now, with God, but this is so powerful. This is so powerful how like God has just starting to take control. He's taking control because he's saying we have to wake up and look and see it is what it is.
Exactly.
I have to see what it is to be a man, to be a father, a husband, a partner, a leader. So it's important. What you said, Katrina said, let all the sow into this vineyard. Let us all sow into this vineyard. Desi, always keep your standards high. Hold on. Hey, so Desi, what you mean by that?
As Troy spoke, when he first met me, we put guidelines down. You only gonna accept so many. Give them ultimatums. Because me speaking personally, in my opinion, if I don't set my standards, I can wind up with anything or anybody. So I told Troy when I met him, it's this, or that. And give him a time frame if you want to. And if they don't abide, I'm warm enough, strong enough to walk.
Yeah.
You don't have to settle.
Come
you
on,
do
man.
not have to settle.
I mean, you know something that's so funny. That's probably why you and Zena are good sister friends.
That's
'Cause
right.
let me tell you something. I remember Zena had to sit down with me one time. They dapping each other. Y'all don't see that. They dapping each other on the side over there. But I remember when I got into the relationship with Zena, and Zena made several things clear to me from the very beginning. One of the things she said, don't ever call me out of my name. She says, don't call me out of my name, period. I don't care how bad it get. And also, she said that she didn't want me to point of, I don't even do that no more now. I'm so conscious of it. And she said, don't ever point your finger at me. And I really didn't understand a lot of what she was saying until we started really getting into the relationship. But I'm saying, go ahead, Desi, go ahead.
I just want to make some clarity on what I just said. That statement I meant because I'm a grown woman. Now I'll tell a younger lady, a woman coming up in her early 20s, still respect herself, still set standards, don't settle, but I still need her to have a good time growing up. Because I don't want no 20-year-old getting with no 60-year-old, someone robbing of her youth.
Right.
So she still got to have standards for herself and know what she wants and where she's going.
That's right.
You know, so don't just end your, because I was getting married, so I knew what I was working on. So you
Right.
got to have a plan.
And that's what we all
You gotta have a
you
plan.
got to have a plan. And we all got to set that tone for our children and for the youth. That's one of the things that Lynn Nelson was talking about, and she said this on so many different occasions, and also even all of us have talked about it. We have to put ourselves in a position where we are now taking our past mistakes and helping the young people know this is not the way to go. You know, I talk to young men all the time when I get a chance to them and tell them, say, pull your pants up, bro. I said, it's not so much that, do you know, people don't understand this. I bought 3 or 4 pair of jeans, right? And they designed them to fall off.
Oh yeah, they design, exactly. They're not even made to come up.
They're not
Not
even-
only they're made to come up, but this is the problem that we run into as men, Rodney. We've been raised to dress the proper way, but society is dictating, and what they do is if we go into our own communities, they're saying, support the black-owned business. It's hard for me to support the black-owned business in my community because you don't sell what I need. But if I go and buy something from that I'm used to, pants that fit, I may have to go to another community, and that should not be what I have to be. My community should not be full of stores that are tennis shoe driven, jeans that are too small, but they're telling our girls that, if he wears them kind of jeans, they're Cosby Huxtable jeans or they're dad jeans. You're not fashionable enough with those on.
We got caller. Hello,
sorry.
how you doing?
I'm well.
And may I ask who, would you like to identify yourself?
Oh, this is Prophetess Katrina McMurray Brown. I have a word for that young man.
Go ahead, talk prophet. Talk prophet.
What I see, I have been studying him, and what I have been seeing is that God's glory is all over this young man. God's glory is over this young man because he is a strategic leader with great tenacity. And God is going to move him in a position that he will be able to lead and to guide not only young men, but it's the men his age and over his age that he will lead, because they need to be taught, and they need to be set down and taught, not to be bashed, not to be talked about, but just sit down, have a conversation. And so what I'm seeing is that this young man is going to open up his own business. I don't know what he's into, I don't know what he does, but I know that God is saying he's going to open up his own business. It's already within his belly. All he has to do is allow that wife to birth it. See, I thank God for men like you, Rodney, and men like, what is your name, sir?
Troy.
Troy, men like you, because you stand up for realness. See, it's not about putting a suit on and going to church and pretending and all this turn on mess. It's about being real and getting in the trenches, in the gutter.
Come on,
That is
speak.
what
That's right.
Jesus did.
That's right.
That is what Jesus' ministry was. And so I say to you, sir, I will be praying for you for the next 30 days, that God will open up your eyes, and the vision that has already been placed in you. You will have dreams and how to maneuver in this business. It's going to be an awesome business. It's going to be a great business, and people will support you. And it may be even in your own home. It may be right in your backyard. It may be in your front yard. But guess what? God said that there is a business, and anything that God says, it shall come to pass. In Jeremiah 29:11, he said, I know the plans and thoughts towards you, and it's of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. It is time for you to stand up and move out, even if you don't have a dime to your name. You're not moving on money, you're moving on faith. And God said, if you believe this prophecy tonight, he will take you somewhere that will blow your mind. I know what I see, I know what I hear, and I'm telling you that God before you, who can be against you? Move out, step in the deep, step in the water, move out in the name of Jesus. And God bless you all.
In the name of
Thank you,
Jesus.
thank you, Lord. Boy, we
Yes,
receive
I
it.
appreciate it. I feel
Yes,
so.
I
Hey,
see.
look, I'm gonna tell you what she just did. She make me want to go out on your front porch and go down to the mall and just stand out there on a stage and just start talking.
Yes. I'm trying to tell you, hey, Katrina, Prophet Katrina,
I'm here.
we love you, and
Yes,
we you know something that's funny. He does have a business. He does have other things that he does. This dude here is part Jamaican. But you know what? I'm glad that you said that, because both him and his wife, they are soldiers. First of all, in God's army.
Yes.
I know that.
Yes.
And then for you to prophesize what you just said, see, because this lady here prophesied some things with me that already done come to pass, and then some things is just coming, and we just love you. We love you, Prophet. We love you.
Love you
I
too.
appreciate that word.
Thank you. God is good. Hey, let me tell y'all something. I'm trying to tell you something. Tracy said a person will only do what you allow them to do. Let me say that is so true, Tracy. But you know something, where we're in a position where we have to change the way we're going about things. It was several things that I wanted to talk about. I didn't really get to throw out there. And one of the things that we got to let our kids know, that we got to get them involved in the politics, understanding what's going on. That don't just think that it's in the hood, that you got to find out what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
And then also be careful when you're watching the news. Yeah, you want to know some of it, but you don't have to watch all of it, because a lot of the news, they put in our head and a lot of other people's head that we are negative.
Right.
That everything about a black person is negative. I haven't seen them really honor too many. I'm going to say Fox 5 do it every now and again, where they'll honor some young kid, but we got a lot of positive black
But I
people.
tell you, I challenge every parent now. This is an election year. We got days coming down before the final election is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't equate face to what you see to determine one side or the other. Have them take 15 minutes a day and look up a political word or political topic.
Come on, bro.
To understand what it means about the donkey and the elephant, the Democrat and the Republican, the liberal.
Yes.
Find out what that means. Look up those words. Find out what they are. because the political language is a totally different language that's spoken other than what we have daily.
Yes.
Our daily language is totally on a different level. When people in politics are speaking, the person that everyone is possibly hating is making underlying comments to a society of people that are out to challenge you. And the other people, things that don't matter to some of those views may not even matter, but you need to look up what bipartisan means. You need to look up whose side the donkey is on. You need to know whose side the elephant is on. You need to find out, what side is the Senate for? What side is the House for? Because our youth that are growing up, it is key. We're going to have to get them into politics. We're going to have to teach them that and understand that they are our future. The ones that are there now, we just lost Lewis. We had Martin Luther King. We had Barack Obama, Michelle. We had all of these people in politics that were a vision. But we need to find out deep down inside what politics is really about and how it affects our lives every day. And since our children are at home and at school, and you're going to do homeschooling, don't let them dictate to you what your children are learning. Yes, they're key to learning their ABCs, but I have a granddaughter, very smart. If I give her a topic and she reads it, I guarantee you she can tell me all about it. But I challenge all parents to be able to give their kids, take 15 minutes out of the day and say, I want you to look this up for me. And let them explain to you what that all means. Because when they get into the working world, politics is going to be key.
Shauna said, amen, this special guest, Troy, and his wife, Desi, are my parents, and I am so proud of who they are and what they represent. Thank you, Rodney, for allowing him to speak on this platform. That's your daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's my daughter.
Yeah.
That's your baby.
Yeah.
That's my baby.
Yeah.
Well, let me say this, Shauna. Let me tell you this. I've known your father not a lot of years, but I've known him some years now, and I don't bow down to any man. I only bow down to God. But I respect this man. I respect him with so much because he stands for a lot. And not just because of what he stands for, being macho or whatever, but I watch how he treats his wife. I watch how he loves his family. But most of all, I watch how he loves God. This guy, there's been times I call and we want to do something, and he got to drive the bus for the church, or he got to be a bodyguard for the pastor, or and he'd be like, well, Rodney, we can't do it because I got to go to church and I got to do it, and they invited us to fellowship with them as well. And I saw your wife in her also situation, how she hurt herself as well. But I just wanted to say that your father, definitely, you should be very, very proud of him, because I am too as well. And I'm, believe it or not, I'm a lot older than he is. But I love the conversations that we had, and I appreciate you. Of course, we're running out of time. I'm sorry. It's 8:02, and hey, it's Real Talk Live with Rodney Grimes, people to people, power to power, power to thank people. And just remember this: it's what you do in your life that makes the difference. You got to put God first in everything, and when you do that, you will come out on top. Remember, Troy, tell them something real quick as we go out.
Fears a handicap. Make sure that whatever your fears are, tackle them and approach them head on, and life will continue to be the most prosperous thing. Walk this journey that God has given you. Put God first. Ask the troublesome questions to people that you have. And by all means, continue to always have self-respect in yourself.
My man.
I
appreciate you, brother. I appreciate you.
Go home.
Yes, I appreciate you. God is good. Thank you. That was powerful.
Thank you, man. Yeah, that's good.